Okay, now down to cognitive ability. Well, how can you conceptualize intelligence? Well, this is a major problem because your initial conceptualization determines in part the strategies that you're going to use to investigate intelligence. And when you pare a sentence down to what is intelligence, the sentence is problematic because part of it is a question about if and how such a thing might manifest itself in the world. So there's a fact out there or a set of facts that corresponds to intelligence, but the other problem is, well, what do you mean when you say intelligence? And you kind of have to nail that down if you're going to have a conversation about intelligence that doesn't go entirely astray. And so you've got a definitional problem as well as an empirical problem. And so there have been, and this was especially true in the 1990s, people have been studying intelligence, IQ intelligence, since the 1920s, and it is a very well-established branch of psychology. One of the things I have to tell you about IQ research is that if you don't buy IQ research, you might as well throw away all the rest of psychology. And the reason for that is that the psychologists, first of all, who developed intelligence testing were among the early psychologists who instantiated the statistical techniques that all psychologists use to verify and test all of their hypotheses. So you end up throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And the IQ people have defined intelligence in a more stringent and accurate way than we've been able to define almost any other psychological construct. And so if you toss out the one that's most well defined, then you're kind of stuck with the problem of what are you going to do with all the ones that you have left over that are nowhere near as well defined or as well measured or whose predictive validity is much less and has been demonstrated with much less vigor and clarity. Anyways, despite all that, people have posited a number of different intelligences, and reasonably so, because if you think of intelligence as that which might move you forward successfully in the world, obviously there's a fair number of phenomena that are associated with individuals that might fit into that category. So we have people have made these distinctions. Bob Sternberg, for example, has distinguished between practical versus analytical intelligence, and he kind of thinks of practical as like street smarts and has attempted to dissociate that from the kind of analytical intelligence that characterizes more straight IQ research. I don't think he's done it successfully as well at all, and since the 1990s, interest in his practical intelligence has declined precipitously because when it is matched head-to-head with standard IQ intelligence, the IQ intelligence eats up all the variability. What's really happened, as far as I can tell so far, is that when we're trying to predict people's course through life, IQ does a very good job, and then one of the traits does a very good job as well, which is conscientiousness. But it doesn't do as good a job as IQ. Now that partly might be because we can't measure conscientiousness very well. We're stuck with self-reports, or maybe I could gather peer reports about you, or I could gather your parents' reports about you, or teachers' reports, and each of those seems to pick up a little bit more of the pattern, because you know yourself, but other people know you differently than you know yourself, and there's still some accuracy in that. You can get multiple rater reports of something like conscientiousness, and that'll up its predictive validity. But in the final analysis, the best you seem to be able to do with conscientiousness is about a 0.4 correlation with long-term performance, whereas with IQ, in complex jobs, you can probably get 0.5 and maybe 0.6. And so 0.5 is 25% of the variance. You got to square it. 0.6 is 36% of the variance, and 0.4 is 16% of the variance. So even at the low end, let's say high end for conscientiousness is 0.4 or 16%. Low end for IQ is 0.5 or 25%. Low end estimates of IQ make it 1.5 times more powerful than the high end estimates of conscientiousness. And I think that's about right. You'd think, why do we even have to debate this? And because it's so bloody obvious to me that intelligence is a major predictor of life success. I mean, you people, I measured the IQ of University of Toronto people, you know, people in this room who have an IQ of less than 120 are rare. Well, why? Well, smart people go to university. Now, is that actually a contentious statement? Well, it shouldn't be a contentious statement. It's self-evident. Universities were actually set up so that smart people could expand their abilities. That's why they were there. And you're selected on the basis of assessments that are essentially there to assess something like intelligence.
Maybe what the controversy is that whatever they're measuring is intelligence. So being able to perform those specific puzzles.
Yes, but that is part of the controversy. Is it reasonable? And this is a measurement issue. And that's why I've been instructing you to some degree in psychometrics, because we actually know how to do this. We know how to answer that question. So let's take a look at how intelligence has been assessed and why, and then you can make up your own mind. Anyways, here's some of the examples of other forms of intelligence. And so then the question is, well, what does it mean to have a different form of intelligence? Would form A and form B be completely uncorrelated? Like extroversion, say, and neuroticism, or would they be slightly correlated, or would they be highly correlated? And then you might ask, well, how highly correlated do they have to be before they're the same thing? Or how uncorrelated